Amici, compagni, comprati del comunità. Friends, classmates, community comrades, we are gathered here on this auspicious occasion, the opening night of an exhibition, to examine the perspective of the following text. The infamous stage play by William Shakespeare of the eminent Julius Caesar, The Boat That Rocked by director-producer Richard Curtis, and the short story A Straight Bat by Roger Holt. It would be quite in order to present one person's perspective, that is, the perspective of the dramatist, the film director, and the author, individually. However, to do so would be to narrow the focus of the respective text. It is my intention to provide you with the evidence that supports my claim of how the exhibition reflects the vision of conflicting perspectives. Conflicting perspectives can be defined as a cause that takes place when groups or individuals do not see eye to eye. Therefore, their perspectives are conflicting, and it involves a judgment based on subjective opinions.
Firstly, in Julius Caesar the play, we need to have an historical perspective in order to understand how conflicting viewpoints have arisen.
This historical viewpoint is obviously taken from the past. Julius Caesar, the man, records his own interpretation of events as prima facie evidence, which provide us with one man's perspective. Shakespeare in Julius Caesar refers to the dastardly characters possessing contradictory or contrasting views of Caesar, Rome, and the action that is taking place. Literary works such as plays often rely on these conflicting perspectives to provide the audience with an all-encompassing view of the plot, and to create a dramatic effect. The focus of the play follows the conflicting perspectives that originate from the main character's view, Caesar, who is the eponymous of the play. The great Elizabethan Jacobean playwright presents conflicting perspectives of Caesar many years after the action was played out on the world stage. Caesar was viewed by many Romans as not only a tyrant, but also the victim of conspiracy, and Brutus not only the greatest assassin of all time, but also the tragic hero. The historian Yoder explains, the cycles of history are more powerful than individual personalities, so that people, no matter who their intentions, fall into the roles that history will have them play. Julius Caesar rose against Brutus, had one moment of triumph when the crowd acclaimed him, and he then instigated Brutus' decline when he turned the crowd against him. History tells us on the Ides of March, 44 BC, Caesar was assassinated by a group of conspirators in the Forum of Pompeii. Led by Brutus and Cassius, the gang stabbed Caesar 23 times, leaving him to bleed to death under a statue of his arch-nemesis Pompey. Shakespeare masterfully presents several views, allowing us to distinguish the characters as all different, and intends us to have our own views of them, thus creates conflicting perspectives. Conflicting perspectives are often developed as the Romans were accustomed to consulting soothsayers or portents for the omens of the day, which forecast future events. In Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, the expression, "Beware the Ides of March," indicates there was a warning in effect. Historically, many of the Romans and senators, including Mark Antony, see Caesar as a noble leader, an undefeatable military strategist, a general who has won tribute and wealth for the nation. Shakespeare provides an opposition to this. Characters such as Casca and Cassius as perspectives, they see Caesar as the one who has usurped his position by force and killed Pompey, and that Caesar is a man who is mentally and physically weak. Casca, Cassius, and Brutus talking in Act 1, Scene 2.
But soft there, pray! What did Caesar soon?
He fell down in the marketplace, and foamed at mouth, and was speechless. 'Tis very like he had the falling sickness.
No, Caesar had it not, but you and I, and honest Casca, we have the falling sickness.
Mark Antony offers a crown, which he refuses several times. The crowd believes Caesar is being very modest, and hence Roman people cry out louder for him to take it. Caesar falls to the ground in an epileptic attack. His refusal of the crown is seen by the devil-possessed conspirators as his strategy to eventually become king, a dictator of the Democratic Republic. Some have argued that Caesar went into the Senate knowing he would be killed. It is suggested that instead of dying a horrible death from epilepsy, he preferred an honorable death. Thus history has recorded his infamous assassination.
As Cassius claims, we have the falling sickness,
metaphorically suggests that they are falling from power. Brutus's compassionate view of Caesar is revolutionary, as seen in the following. As Caesar loved me, I weep for him. As he was fortunate, I rejoice at it. As he was valiant, I honor him. But as he was ambitious, I slew him. Antony's view of Caesar as seen through Brutus's eyes. When the poor have cried, Caesar hath wept. Ambition should be made of sterner stuff. Yet Brutus says he was ambitious, and Brutus is an honorable man. Caesar's career as an advocate is quite strongly linked with his politics. As a politician, he courted the favor of the plebs and the popular assembly, whereas the more traditional politician of the day tends to favor the patricians in general, and specifically the Senate. Caesar was wont to stand up against rich, corrupt, greedy patricians and defended the common man. Secondly, in The Boat That Rocked,
conflict is the essence of a drama, and Richard Curtis is able to exploit to create tension through images, symbols, and language that is dialectical, polemical, language of extreme opposites or antitheses.
The film, similar to Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, is based on a true story. In 1966, British pop and rock's music finest era, the BBC played less than 30 minutes of rock and roll every day. Pirate radio played rock and pop from the high seas 24 hours a day, with 25 million people, over half the population of Britain, listening to the Pirates every single day. Pirate radio's dream was to rock Britain day and night. The British government were against pirate radio, as they thought it would give Britain a bad name. Thus, they were on a mission to shut them down, just as it was the Romans' desire to shut Caesar down after he had achieved success. Radio Rock's controversial on-air antics have ruffled the feathers of a government minister who instructs his subordinates to take down pirate radio. Despite its popularity among the pop-hungry masses, several of the government's plans backfired, and the only way to shut them down was to create and pass through Parliament the Marines Offences Act. In spite of the fact that the act was passed, it didn't stop these DJs with no morals defying the act. Ironically, the same day the act was passed, the pirate radio sunk. The legacy left by the summer of 1967, the golden age of pirate radio, was over. The big dream never died. There are 299 music stations across the UK that play rock and pop all day and all night. Similar to the assassination of pirate radio, Caesar was cut down in his 66th year. However, in history has made its mark with only recent assassins such as John F.K. Kennedy, Martin Luther King Jr., and the death of Diana, going down in history as the other greater conspiracy theories. The conflicting perspectives transpire when the views of the pirate radio station and the government are conflicting. In both texts, the conspirators emerge from within the government, in which they believe their plans are for the greater good of Rome in Julius Caesar and the greater good of Britain in The Boat That Rocked. Similarly, the use of the mob stands to be a powerful tool, in which the mob goes against the conspirators in both texts. This is because the mob are easy to influence, and the mob only believe in what is good for them. This is evident in the quote, 93% of British people would listen to Radio Rock instead of the British government. Thirdly, through the examination of a third text, we see how conflicting perspectives can take on another decision. In contrast, to Julius Caesar and The Boat That Rocked, where the conflicting perspectives arise because individuals are at odds with government bodies, in this case, we see conflict on the home front. Possibly, Roger Holt's motive behind writing the short story, A Straight Bad, is to get his point of the societal issues that take place between a father, George Banks, and child, Timothy. "It is at present to you," is the opening sentence in the short story, which suggests the parents are kind and loving. In A Straight Bad, it is a father's dream for the son to play cricket and beat the school record he scored many years ago. However, Timothy does not understand cricket. All he dreams about are violins. "You must score a lot of runs with it, Timothy. Hundreds of runs. Remember, you have a tradition to keep up, the one your father still holds. This record for the quickest century." Timothy stared at the wall in front of him and thought of the violins. They reminded him of the surging sea and the swooping gulls. The conflicting perspectives arise because of both father and child's opposing dreams and aspirations. The father, rather than encouraging Timmy, cuts him down and destroys his worthiness. In contrast, the mother in this story is like the plebeians in Julius Caesar. She tries taking sides with the son, but ends up with the father. It's not a bad instrument, George. The title, The Straight Bat, utilizes symbolism, which suggests that the child needs to yield the parent's wishes and walk the straight and narrow path of conformity, of playing the game, and non-compromise, which reflects the vision of conflicting perspectives. Holt uses a short story and a succinct cliche expression of "it looked heavy" when describing the cricket bat, which creates a vision of conflicting circumstances. The child is young and gentle and sees the cricket bat as a burden, the weight of the bat and his father's expectations. Holt uses direct, dogmatic language. "You must score lots of runs," and then he laughs loudly. This is a pressure statement, which promotes an ambivalent response. It is the irony of innocence of youth and experience of adulthood. Timothy hears the music of the violin. However, the father only walks to the beat of a different drummer. In his recollections and reminiscing of his cricket days, if a man loses pace with his companions, perhaps it is because he hears a different drummer. Let him step to the music which he hears, however measured or far away. This is not your typical father and son story, where the views of father and son do not bout. All Timothy has wanted to do is play the violin, but is forced to play the life his father played. The image of the straight bat is that it is an implement that only works effectively when it connects with the ball and the batsman makes the runs. The father reiterates the ideas that have been going around in his head for many years. He will not be satisfied with anything less than hundreds of runs. This exemplifies the poor affiliation the child experiences with his father, and therefore does not allow for the close connection experienced by many father and son relationships. Have any of you felt that way, where your parents have forced you into something where your passion was not at? Dear friends, as we have seen on this auspicious occasion, an exhibition examining perspective of the text, Julius Caesar, The Boat That Rocked, and A Straight Bat, we have examined various conflicting perspectives of not only the dramatist, the film director, and the author individually. Julius Caesar and The Boat That Rocked clearly portray the conflicting perspectives when an individual or a group of individuals are seen to be at odds with the mob mentality, while in A Straight Bat, we see an individual at odds with a parental authority. We have seen how history has dealt with these people and considered the ways in which conflicting perspectives on events, personalities, or situations are represented by them, utilizing the various textual forms, features, and language which shape meaning and influence our response.